It's kind of my first time here in Portugal, and the people are lovely, and I love Lisbon. The food, it's very cultural, and it's very traditional actually. And even the places that a food blogger and someone who writes about food for Lisbon recommended me to go. She said this is really new and interesting, and it's vegan, and you can try this, and it's great. I felt like it was really old-fashioned. So, you know, this is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just that you have a very strong cultural history, and it's still in the food. And I think that coming from the UK, I mean, I travel all over the world anyway, you know, for my job, but we're very outward facing. We are less traditional, and we are fickle and looking for the next latest thing all the time. So we have a lot of new things constantly, whereas here it feels like a little bit further behind. There are over 3,500 different insects, so depending on the taste you want, it's not just, oh, insects, they all taste the same. Some are cheesy, some are like lemongrass, and everything in between. Some very strong and hot and peppery. It's really different. So you might like one and not like the other, but you can make meatballs with ground up crickets, for example. Insects taste very earthy, generally, I'm generalising, but crickets are very earthy tasting. But I was talking about insects 10 years ago, and I get asked a lot about insects, even though I think it's old now. But in the UK and in lots of countries, we're now seeing lots of products in the supermarkets made from insect cricket protein, or maybe different mealworm protein, ground up insects basically, made into things like a bar with fruit and nuts in it, or maybe chips, but now they're called chirps, because they're made from crickets. The problem with a lot of insects, and this is why it's taken so long, I mean, there's many reasons why it's taken so long in the West, but some of them have the same physical reactions as peanuts, so that if you're allergic to peanuts, you might also be allergic to certain insects, so it can be problematic. World hunger is not my job. If that was my job, I'd be in politics, I think. You know, the thing is, it's not that there's not food available, there's so much food available because we are wasting it in the West. It's about supply chain, it's about how do we get that food to those people. There's corruption in a lot of the countries where people are starving. It's complicated. You know, there's war-torn areas where trucks can't go with the food that's available. So, and they have insects. A lot of those developing countries have been eating insects all of their life. So it's just not that simple. So I don't think that insects are the answer for the people who are starving. But if we're talking about what's really happening in global terms in health, we are, as a world, richer than we ever have been before. And what we're seeing is that a lot of illness and a lot of problems in the West is not about starvation, of course, it's about obesity. So we have the exact opposite problem. And I think that in some ways food is always can often be a problem and the solution. And we see it, you know, in contrast, right next to each other. But even when people are obese, they can still be malnourished. So we're seeing a lot of malnourishment in the West, even with obesity present. Mm-hmm. It's complicated. And it's one of the biggest things to do with climate change, and is eating meat. So we give up eating meat, and we will really start to make a positive change in the environment. And we're going that way. You know, veganism is on the rise, vegetarianism is on the rise. 1/4 of girls under 25 in Europe are already vegetarian. Plant-based diet is really gathering momentum. Maybe not so much in Lisbon, but it's happening, and it really is. If everyone just ate half as much meat as they eat now, we would already be in a better position. And it's not just ethical reasons, it's environmental, it's ethical, it's also physical. And we've been eating so much meat because we can afford it, but it's a recent phenomenon. In the 80s, the 90s, and now, we've eaten more meat than we ever have in our history. So now the time is changing, and people are eating less and less in the West. It's increasing in the developed countries because we've associated eating meat with wealth. So once they get more money, they want more meat. Nothing creates the environmental issues in food like meat does.
That's why I don't eat
It's
anymore.
because of the gases, because of the methane, because of how much it takes to grow a cow, how much water, how many crops, and all of that crop could feed lots of people. It's going to one cow for one piece of meat. It's very hard.